Okay, we're going to talk about how to implement API calls into your Alexa skill, and we're going to do that using the MediaWiki API as an example. So the first thing we need to do is write a new function, and we're going to call it fetch wiki extract. We'll leave the parameters empty for the time being. And the first thing we want to do in this function is define the endpoint. So in order to find your endpoint, for this situation, we're going to go browser, search engine, and you want to look up MediaWiki API. And you want the first result, and here you'll have an example URL, which is basically the format that any MediaWiki site is going to follow. So what we'll do is, instead of www.example, we're going to say simple.wikipedia.org for the simple English version of Wikipedia. So that's going to look like this, in quotes, https simple.wikipedia.org/w/api.php. Cool. Next thing we want to do is define what the parameters are going to be. So wiki params. The first parameter is generally going to be question mark followed by action equals query. It's pretty self-explanatory. We need to concatenate all of the parameters, and after this first one we need to connect them in the URL itself with the ampersand symbol. So what I'll do is copy and paste what I've got from my notes, and I'll get rid of that for now. This is essentially what you want for the time being. You can read these comments if there's any confusion, but this basically is telling the endpoint that we want a few sentences from a specified Wikipedia page in JSON format. And there's a few other things as well, like this thing prevents cause error, which is something you'll probably run into a lot. I know I have. But that's pretty much it. So now we'll just put these two variables together, which is going to be wiki link equals wiki endpoint plus wiki params, and we're going to console log that for later as well, so we can actually click on the link and see what data we're getting back. Right, next up we need to set the config, and this is the point where I need to talk about Axios. So this is going to be required for you to follow along, but essentially what you want to do is go to the npm website. You want to search Axios, first result. I recommend you read this just to get the context of what's happening, and to install it you just do npm install Axios in your console. So once you've done that, you want to do timeout. This is 6.5 seconds, which is just a little bit shorter than Alexa's timeout, which is 8 seconds. So yeah, now the config's set, we can write the actual function which is going to fetch the data. So async function get JSON response. The parameter is going to be URL and config, which we're going to replace with wikilink and wikiconfig. So open that up, and we're going to put const res equals await axios.get URL comma config. Alright, what's happening here? So response is going to be equal to the result of axios.get. This is just a fetch function that comes with Axios. This is taking, whatever you input, and await is going to wait for this code to finish. It's going to wait for the response to come back before it continues, and it's going to run, asynchronously alongside the synchronous code, which speeds things up. apparently. So next is we need to return res.data, and this .data part is this just opens up into the first sort of layer of the JSON that comes back. If you look at a JSON, you'll see that it's surrounded from start to finish by a set of curly braces, and that is what .data represents, as far as I can tell. So next we need to return, and we're going to return get JSON response, the function we just made, and the parameters are going to be wiki link instead of URL, and wiki config instead of config. And because that function is asynchronous, we can do .then, it's just so it goes in order, I guess, .then result arrow function return result. So that's pretty much all you need, essentially, but you can also do .catch, and this is recommended as well. You want to catch error, arrow function into, it would be a good idea to do like console.log, and then be like an error has occurred, and then display what the error is, and this is just a thing that Axios does by itself. After that line, you're just going to want to return null. Oh dear. Okay. Alright, cool. So that's the end of the function. Almost. We also have an empty parameter thing here, and there's a reason why I left it blank. So what you can actually do with this and titles parameter is you can put in anything you want, like for example Amazon_Alexa, and then this function will just fetch the first couple of sentences from the page for Amazon Alexa, which is great, but it's not very versatile, and it means the function's only going to do one thing. So what we can actually do is set that to param, and then put param in here as well. So what that means is that when you call it outside in a different file, which is what we're going to do later, we can replace this with the title of any Wikipedia page we want, and that's the title of the page that's going to be searched. So that's pretty great. Final thing we need to do is actually export this. The name of it's fetch wiki extract. And also, if you haven't already, just remember, if you're using Axios, you need to import Axios at the top as well. So just const Axios equals require Axios. And that is pretty much where we're going to stop in this file. So next we move over to, this is like going to be your equivalent to index.js. I'm doing it a little bit differently, but it's really no different at all. So what do we do here? We do const wiki data equals await API helper, that's the file where my function is, dot fetch wiki extract, that's the name of the function, and the parameter I want is tied. We want the Wikipedia page for tied. So if we console log this, we should see a response. Just going to run my unit test, and we can see something has come back. So this is just a JSON that's come back, and we've actually got the link here which we logged before right here. So if we follow this link, we can see exactly what data we're getting back. I think this works in Chrome and Firefox, but if you're using Internet Explorer, it's going to look a little something like that. So what we want to do is navigate to this line here. So the way we do that is we do the name of the variable .query .pages index of 0 .extract. So variable is going to be called wiki output, and we're going to say wiki data .query .pages index of 0 .extract. And now if we console.log wiki output, we should see the sentence itself being logged in the console. And here it is, which is great. If you wanted to implement this in a practical sense, then I would say what you want to do, just as an example, is go like, what would you do? It's like return handler input dot response builder dot speak, and then you just put in wiki output, and then dot get response. And then what you'll see is this appearing in the speak output, which we can see here. Tired is a periodic rise and fall of social service, etc., etc. So yeah, that's pretty much the end. Good luck.